Hey everybody, this is part 3 of the injector rebuild on this 04 industrial diesel tractor. And part 2, I showed you the rebuild process for the injectors and showed you how I was flashing the valves and everything when I put the injectors back in. And I've finished up, I've got all 4 installed with the valves lashed cold. You're supposed to reset these once you get the engine up to operating temperature, so we've just done the best we can do for now. But I'll kind of show you where I'm at here, and we'll try to get this finished up and see if it runs. So this is where I'm at. I've got all 4 injectors rebuilt, and I don't have the return line back on yet. We'll do that here in just a minute. But I've got all my push rods back in and lashed the valves cold, and I'm going to spin it over real quick and just make sure that the valve train all looks good. And once we kind of see that everything is good there, I'll go ahead and put the return lines on, and we'll get the valve cover back on and get some fuel hooked back up to it and see if it'll run or not. So we'll go ahead and try to spin it over real quick here. Just make sure everything is good with the valves. It looks all right to me. Seems like everything's moving. So I will go ahead and get the return line ready, and we'll go over putting that on. So the first thing that I need to do right now is there's a little rubber seal in here. That's where the return line seals. I need to get this one popped out. I've got a new rubber seal for that. I'm hoping I can thread a screw into it just by hand and get it to pull out. That's what I'm kind of hoping for here. If not, we might have to try to use a pick or something and pick it out. It's been in there a while, I'd say. So it is being kind of aggravating. I'm going to try to pick here, see if I can get it broke loose from the outsides of the hole that it's in. Hopefully it kind of comes out together and it's not a bunch of little bitty pieces, but all right, there we go. So we were after right there, and I'll have to check and make sure there's no more in there, but I've got a new seal for that. So we needed to get that one out. So this is the return line here for your injectors. It bolts down on top of them. I think I mentioned it, but it is soldered together, so just be gentle with it. If this gets a crack in it or comes apart, it can leak diesel in the crankcase, so try to avoid that. These are our 4 Banjo Bolts, and then I've got all new crush washers for these Banjo Bolts. So we'll head over to the tractor and see if we can get this return line reinstalled. Oh, and then also this is our new rubber seal that we just picked out. You can see how the old one looks, maybe. So you can tell the new one is, kind of just looks like a little piece of rubber hose. So that slides on here. This is the part that goes down in the cylinder head and where the diesel gets returned to. And then this, we'll just push on top over this hose. Pretty snug fit. So there it is, that's how that goes. And then when you tighten this down, it makes the seal. So we'll get this installed. So this might be a little bit tedious. I'm gonna try to kind of get this set close first, and then I'll try to slide my sealing washers up under the banjo fittings here, and see if we can get our banjo bolts in. But I want to see if I can get this to kind of so that's about where it needs to be. Alright, I'm set up to put my first banjo bolt in. Got both my little crush washers. And I'm going to try to slide this under there by hand and get it lined up and then put my bolt in. It's going to be a little bit tedious, I think. And I put the rag there so that hopefully if I drop it, it gets caught, because this is not magnetic. And I really don't want to be fishing it out of the engine. Alright, I think I got that one started. Both crush washers are on it. So I'm going to do this 3 more times and we'll snug this fitting here, and then we'll have our fuel system pretty much complete, besides tightening these lines after we start it and get the air bled. Okay, the fuel system and valve train is totally back together. I've tightened all these return line bolts. I just snugged them with a ratchet. They don't have to be real tight. I read that there was not a torque spec on those. If there is, I don't know what it is, but anyway. And then the same for this. I just snugged it down until I felt some resistance. I knew everything was, getting pushed together in there. And that's pretty much it. We're going to put the valve cover back on, and I'll probably slide the tank in temporarily, and we'll try to start it and see what happens. Okay, this is the moment we've been waiting on. I'm going to try to start this thing. I just have the tank sitting in there because I may pull it off once it heats up and readjust the valves. The injector lines are loose. All the fuel valve and everything is on. So I'm going to crank it and see if I can get some fuel spitting out the lines. If I can, I'll tighten them up and see if we can get it going. Hopefully I don't have to use ether, but we'll see. I'm sure it's going to smoke and mist until all the air is out of the lines, so I expect that. But hopefully it'll start without too much trouble. I had fuel coming out the lines pretty much immediately, so I went ahead and tightened the lines, and we'll crank it and see if it'll start. I'll probably run the glow plugs for a second because I haven't done that. It's a little cooler today. Alright, here we go. I'll run the glow plugs again. Alright, I can tell the battery's not going to make it, so I'm going to give it a tiny shot of ether and we'll see if that can get it going. We'll pull it outside here and let it warm up a little. Alright, I'm going to let it run a little bit. After I'm satisfied it's got most of the air out of the lines, I will update. Okay, it's been a few days. This thing is totally back together. I have changed the fuel filter and I put a lower radiator hose on it, kind of unrelated, but it was pretty gummy, so I went ahead and replaced it. I went ahead and did my hot valve lash, and I put my fuel tank back in. So pretty much everything's done. It's in the mid 50s today. It's pretty nice out. It's not what I would call cold, but we'll do a cold start, I guess, just to see what happens. I'll run the glow plugs for a little bit, and I'll go ahead and crank it over, and we'll see how she starts. Should have all the air out of the lines and everything now. I've ran it some, so we'll give it a shot here. Yeah, it sounds pretty good now. Not a lot of haze either, even on a cold start. I'm sure if it was down in the 30s it would be worse, but alright, I'm gonna let this warm up. We'll go ahead and do a hot start, and I might drive it around the yard just a little so y'all can kind of see how it does, and I will get back with you. Excuse the wind, but we'll do a little hot start and drive real quick here. You can just kind of watch the exhaust and get an idea. Really doesn't haze any once it's warmed up. Just got a little black when you get down on it or put it under a load. So seems to be running really good warm. To excuse my sun grin, but for comparison's sake, I'll go ahead and enter a little clip of it running before and after here. That way y'all can kind of get an idea of what it ran like before. You can tell it has a mist and it's puffing smoke, and it just didn't sound near as smooth as it does now, so I'll go ahead and put that here. Okay, that's going to conclude this video. The tractor runs way smoother. That number 2 injector was definitely the worst one, the one I showed on video. I did have another one or two that weren't the best, but the number 2 was really peeing out in streams instead of atomizing. So, but I think they all needed rebuilt for sure, and it runs a lot smoother. It doesn't have that mist that it used to have in it, and I'm not sure yet. I'm not totally convinced that cold starts that much better. Time will tell, but it did have kind of a hard time starting in the low 40s the other day. It had been in the 30s at night. So it could still have some other issues, possibly injection pump or the pump timing. But it's an old tractor, and it runs really well now, especially once it warms up for just a couple of minutes. So I'm pretty happy with the result. It's kind of what I was hoping. I was hoping maybe it would start pretty good even down in the cold, but I can live with it. It doesn't get that cold around here. So anyway, that's going to conclude this video. Hopefully I told y'all everything I was thinking to say, but I appreciate you watching, and stick around for whatever project comes along next.